and welcome to the Legal Eagle this week. One of India's topmost criminal lawyers, he's completed 50 years at the bar. He's also a senior advocate in the Supreme Court. I welcome on the show Mr. KTS Tulsi. Mr. Tulsi, as I welcome you, a huge congratulations. You've nearly completed half a decade at practicing something which you're extremely passionate about. I remember meeting you early on, around 10 years ago, and I remember the one thing you said: you have to give your youth to law. Explain that. As 1971 when you started law, today almost so much time has passed. What were your early years like? And I remember you telling us that you burnt the midnight oil, studying into the night to be where you are today.
I don't know. I just think that I've been lucky. I've got 10 times more in terms of recognition, in terms of money or whatever, than I deserved. I think I started off by joining the chamber of one of the very eminent lawyers, that is Mr. Harbans Lal Sareen. His son Max Sareen and me were best of friends, and Mr. Sareen had lots of cases to file every day, and we were allotted 4 or 5 cases for preparing the grounds of appeal and doing the research of the relevant judgments, precedents, and we used to run behind Mr. Sareen, and I think I learned a great deal from him how to organize your work. We started there on the 3rd of July in 1971. Both of us joined his chamber. But by December, I dropped a bombshell on my friend that I want to now jump into the ocean. So he told me, "You are an idiot, you are stupid, you don't know how challenging this profession is, you'll get frustrated." So I said that if I'm not good enough to make it in the profession, then I might as well fail now rather than after 20 years. So anyway, I acted out on my own. We used to get cases from the Advocate General for opposing bail applications, etc. those days, and we used to be paid 32 rupees as our fee. So we were very happy to do this one of the cases that I remember was with regard to an FCI, and one of my father's class fellows came from behind and patted me on the back, and he said, "You know, this case belongs to a member of our family that you're going." So I was livid. I just couldn't believe that somebody will come and try to influence me. And I went to the library and took out Gurbakh Singh Sibia's judgment, and then argued passionately for dismissal of the bail, which was dismissed by Justice Dhillon. Now, when I came out of the court, he again came behind to me and he says, "तू अपने प्यो तो कटता नहीं निकलिया, सारी advocacy मेरे ते कट दी," which I think till date is the greatest compliment that I have got, and I have never allowed anyone to interfere with my professional work. That was a very good lesson for me, but we didn't have many cases. In 3-4 cases we would get from the Advocate General in a week, but I was not concerned about money. I realized that I had plenty of time on hands, so I started writing a book, that is Tulsi's Digest of Accident Claims Cases. It took me 3 years of hard work to write that book, and fortunately it got selected by the topmost law publisher from Calcutta, Eastern Law House, Calcutta. They were So I got about 25,000 rupees as royalty on my book, with which I managed to buy a second hand Standard Herald car. Um, I was still having so much time on hand that I was wondering what to do, and in the meantime, I got appointed the the part-time lecturer by the law department of Punjab University, and we used to get 400 rupees for delivering 8 lectures in a week. But the great thing about lecturing in the law school was that our own concepts became clearer, and I requested the head of the department to change my subject every year, so that I was forced to study another subject. I still had more time on my hands, so I started publishing a law journal, which was Chandigarh Short Notes. And with that, I was compelled to read the latest judgments. I couldn't afford to buy judgments even at subsidized rate. So I used to borrow the file from the library at 4 o'clock when the courts closed, with the promise that it will reach them by 10 o'clock in the morning. I used to work till late at night and prepare my head notes for the judgments. And 6 o'clock in the morning, the stenographer would come, I would give dictation and then return the file. But my law journal became very popular, and people didn't have to buy 6 journals or 10 journals, because everything, all latest cases from all fields of law were there. So I think I got recognition from the Chief Justice. He called me and he says that I would like to appoint you as a reporter of the Indian Law Reports, which is the official law journal of the court. So we had to be much more careful, because our head notes used to go to the judge concerned for approval, and then they were published. And we used to get 250 rupees a month for this reporting job. I mention the money only to bring home to the youngsters that that's how we are different from a business. It's a profession. It's a process of learning. And I think the 2 books that I wrote, and the law journal and the teaching, this is what made matters clearer to my mind, how the cases progress, how the mind of the judge works, how does he analyze, how does he give the chronology of the case and then apply the law. I learnt much more, and I think that was worth 1,000 times more than what I got for doing it. But in the process, I became ready.
I want to, before I come to another very important segment about the Upahar cases that you did pro bono, ask you about the terrorism cases that you have represented. How should terrorism, after those cases that you've seen, how was it molded at that time, these cases that you did, and what did it finally yield to, sir?
You see, I had known Mr. S.S. Ray. Mr. Ray, I had taken him to Assam, and he did lead me in several cases. So we knew each other well. And Mala, his wife, was such a fantastic hostess. Mr. Ray became the governor of Punjab, I think in 86 or 87, and 1987. I went to his swearing in. He had invited me, and then about 10 days later, he invited me, my mother, my wife, for a cup of tea in Raj Bhavan. So we all went to Raj Bhavan, and he says, Tulsi, you are a lawyer and I'm a lawyer. I tell you that I don't like this daily headlines in the newspapers that so and so has been killed by the police and so, they say it's fake encounter. I don't like these allegations. I want you to prosecute these terrorists and procure death sentence from the courts in accordance with law. That's how we will be able to eliminate terrorism from here. So he says, so I said, sir, you are here, you'll be gone tomorrow, back to Delhi or wherever else, maybe anywhere. I have to live here. How will I live here? So he says, this is your bloody Punjab. If you are not concerned about it, why am I concerned? You think I didn't have enough work in Supreme Court? I'll go back tomorrow and I'll start working. I'll have enough work. And we are here to serve the country. I'm here to restore peace in the state and prosperity. So I said, sir, can you give me a couple of days to think about it? Because it's difficult. But my mother, in the meantime, jumped in and she said, no, your duty should come first and your own safety should come later. So that settled it. And I have lots of tales to say, but I can only tell you one thing, that there was a bail application that I was arguing in Sangrur Central Jail. This was about the attempt on Mr. Ribeiro's life. And I argued against the bail being granted to those accused. After I argued for 45 minutes or so, and I could see the judge, this was winter, and the court was sitting out in the open in the sun. And despite winter, the judge was wiping sweat from his forehead. Every minute he was doing that, and he was getting very uncomfortable, very nervous. So I was wondering what is happening. I came back to Chandigarh and I told Mr. Ribeiro about how the hearing went. And next morning we learned that he had granted bail to all the 6 accused. I was very upset and I told Mr. Ribeiro that we should immediately challenge this. I'm going to Supreme Court, and he spoke to the governor and the Home Secretary, and everybody came to Delhi, and we filed the petition and got a stay against release of these persons. There are many cases, many other instances, but I don't like to talk about them. It is the turning point in my career came 2 years later, after Mr. Ray resigned and Mr. VP Singh came into power, and Mr. VP Singh wanted to give a gesture to the Sikh community by saying that all these cases should be withdrawn, and wherever they couldn't be withdrawn, then he said that they should be granted bail and we should not oppose bail. I immediately resigned as a special prosecutor, but a few months later, Mr. Subramanian Swamy came and we had worked together in PUCL. And I met Mr. Swamy in Delhi at his residence, because we learned that he had become a law minister. And moment I went to congratulate him, he embraced me, hugged me, and he says, "Tulsi, you are my additional Solicitor General." And he had just taken oath the previous evening. He simply announced and then stuck to it, and that's how I came to Delhi and I got an opportunity of doing all the rest.
Mr. Tulsi, I also wanted to, since you are a pioneer when it comes to criminal law, you've actually seen the cases right in front. We're talking about bail, and you would know much better than any of us that bail, not jail, is what should be happening. We've seen in the past few days the contempt cases that are being drawn against a whole host of people. We've seen how the Supreme Court is also taking note of it. How do you feel they should be viewed, whether it's in a particular state, whether it's in the Supreme Court, and keeping in mind that bail not jail is the norm? We've also seen the Supreme Court's recent judgment on liberty when it came to Arnab Goswami's own case. The larger point, I'm not going into the nitty-gritties of the case, but the larger point in India, the one line that struck with me, deprivation of liberty for even one day is a day too many.
You see, the law of on liberty has seen many ups and downs in the Supreme Court. There were times when Justice Krishna Iyer, Justice Bhagwati, they were so concerned about liberty, as Sunil Vatra, Hossain Khatun. At that time, they say this is the heart of the Constitution. This is the most precious right of a citizen. And it was clear that bail couldn't be denied as a result of as a punishment. It's only supposed to ensure that he will stand the trial, and that's all that was required to be considered, not the merits. If it's not going to be punitive, then that means you can't go into the merits. And Justice Bhagwati, in one of the judgments, Kashmira Singh, he said that that was a different age, it seems. He said that with what courage will we be able to look at the accused who is being acquitted after 10 years, 12 years of incarceration? Can we give him his youth back? That was a humane age. But now bail is more like a chancellor's foot. Everybody has his own attitude. Well, of course, it's part of judging, because the judge's personality also gets reflected in the decisions that they have taken. But nowadays, things had gone so bad that we won't get bail even when the special leave was being granted. And I said that the pendulum has now moved to the other extreme, that the matter is worth consideration, worth being considered by the Supreme Court, but it's not worth bail being granted. So this is, there has been now a certain correction in the perspective with regard to liberty. I'm sure that it will influence a great deal in the next few years, until the pendulum begins to swing the other side, but I hope not. Liberty is the most precious aspect of democracy, and people should not be. Our prisons are packed with under trials who have spent not only half the sentence, sometimes the entire sentence, and matters remain pending in the courts. I don't think we can give justice if we take so long to decide. Either we grant bail, make it. You see, I'm so glad that nowadays the courts are taking into consideration the prison population and say that you have to release people, particularly the pandemic. You have to release people. You can't have overcrowding in the prisons in the days of COVID. Not, well, COVID is a different yardstick, but it should never have been overcrowding should never have been tolerated. In other countries, other civilized countries, the court asks that we can remand him only if you say that release so and so on bail, but we will not overcrowd the prison. People in India, the worst that happens to them is not the sentence, not the punishment, but the manner in which they are kept in prison. They even their human rights are denuded. That is what pains us, and I've been writing for the last 40, 50 years about speeding up criminal justice. And it is possible to speed it up. But somehow or the other it's not been possible for all of us to be able to do it.
Sir, in your endeavor to have been a part of several public interest litigation cases, one of them that fondly comes to mind is the Upar tragedy case, where you've been appearing pro bono for them since 25 years. It's been a case in which we've often seen you in the corridors of the Supreme Court, in the other courts, fighting for them, trying to battle it out. In the end, the Krishnamurtis and the others who were part of the association felt justice was not done. And I remember, the youngest person who died in the Upar tragedy case is a 3-month-old baby. Take us through this journey and how they felt that the VIPs in India had gotten away free and they wanted more justice in the system, sir.
Yes, when I was approached by actually they went to meet Shekhar Gupta, and Shekhar asked them, why don't you go and consult so and so? And all these persons led by themselves, they all came to my house, and I remember telling them that you will not be able to fight big business houses and also the police, because the police is also partly responsible for this tragedy. The DCP who granted the license had filed one affidavit that closing the exit will endanger the lives of people sitting in the balcony. But only a few weeks later, he granted them the permission. After that, I have physically inspected and granted permission. And that's exactly what has happened. His own affidavit was prophetic. But I can't talk about it because his petition is still pending in the Supreme Court. However, I think that it was Neelam who was the driving spirit. She kept the entire association together. She formed an association. She then worked day and night for that association. And I, of course, took care of the case from the court of the magistrate right up to the Supreme Court. But it was the tireless efforts of Neelam Krishnamurti and her husband and various other people who stuck it out for 2.5 decades.
The most enlightening part of this conversation that we've had on the Legal Eagle with you has been your earlier years and how it was that the success actually came, how painstaking it was, but also how it started off, how you started off your journey with the smaller parts, the digest, and how it helped you in becoming one of India's topmost criminal lawyers. I thank you for being with us on the Legal Eagle, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.